Okay, I'll call the February 13th, 2024 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would Councilmember I did.
Say my name? Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vignell,
Here.
Councilmember Cavalieri,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
and Councilmember Paddock.
Present.
Okay, audience communication. Anyone like to address the council tonight? Seeing a nod of heads negative here. Anyone online? Going once. Anyone like to address the council online?
I would, please.
Yeah, go ahead. State your name and city of residence, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Sure, thank you. My name is Beth Barkosi. I bought a little house here in Mill Creek back in November. Prior to that, I was renting in Linwood for a couple of years. I'm from the East Coast. My concern is seeing the tagging that's going on in Mill Creek. I specifically left Linwood and spent more than I was comfortable with to get into Mill Creek because I believe it's a better environment. I'm seeing a lot of tagging. It doesn't seem to be getting covered up by, I was going to say the township. People here tell me that's an East Coast term, by the city, by Mill Creek. And first, it's unsightly. I mean, the areas of Philadelphia that I'm familiar with that are bad, it reminds me of that, which is really sad. But it's also scary because I work in the court and I'm familiar with the gang presence all over the country, but here too, and especially the teenage gangs. That was a big problem in Linwood. I lived near the high school there, and there was a lot of tagging. And the neighbors got together and they covered it up immediately every day, and that seemed to really knock it down. Here you'll see there's tagging, and then you'll see tagging over top of it, which means a competing gang is present, and that's how, like, the turf wars. I'm not going to say it's how it starts. I'm not an expert by any means, but I know it's not a good thing. So being new here and excited to be here, I just was curious to hear any thoughts on that, and if people are aware of it other than me. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments and welcome to the community. At some point, Martin or Chief, could you be good to have a little report on what residents should do when they encounter it? And if we can help educate people on what we should be doing to address that, it'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else online like to address the council? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to our presentations. The first presentation is in honor of Black History Month. I'd like to read a proclamation on behalf of the City Council. A proclamation of the City of Mill Creek. Whereas the City of Mill Creek takes pride in recognizing February 2024 as Black History Month, a time dedicated to remembering and celebrating Black culture, history, contributions, and sacrifices made to create a brighter future for all Americans. And whereas Black History Month celebrates the achievements of African Americans who have been instrumental in shaping the character, culture, and economic life of our state and nation. And whereas Dr. Carter G. Woodson, founder of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, first launched Negro History Week in 1926 and is widely regarded as the father of Black history. And whereas in 1976, the informal expansion of Negro History Week to Black History Month was officially recognized by the United States government. And whereas the 2024 Black History Month theme is African Americans and the Arts, and focuses on African, Caribbean, and Black American lived experiences in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. The influence has been paramount, and an unbroken chain of Black art production from antiquity to the present can be seen from Egypt, across Africa, from Europe to the New World. And whereas Black History Month is an occasion to rediscover the enduring stories of African Americans and the gifts of freedom, purpose, and opportunity they have bestowed on future generations, it is also a time to commemorate the countless contributions of African Americans, many of whom lived through and surmounted the scourge of segregation, racial prejudice, and discrimination to enrich every fiber of American life. Their examples of heroism, patriotism, and enterprise have given people of all backgrounds confidence, courage, and faith to pursue their own dreams. Whereas Black History Month is a time to recognize and honor the many people, events, and significant contributions of Black and African Americans to our community, nation, and world. Now therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, Mayor of the City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 as Black History Month and ask all residents to join me in commemorating the countless contributions of African Americans to our nation and our world. I'm signing it this 13th day of February 2024. Okay, who is, are you, okay, Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. So again, we're bringing forward the AWC CQC scholarship process here, and we started last year with an applicant that applied. We only had one, and she was very qualified. And this year we had we were fortunate to have probably a handful of applicants come through, students that are seniors, leaders in their community, for local governments, or their schools, or combined. So we're fortunate here to have Ella Williams as the winner, and thank you to all of council for voting and reviewing those applications. A little bit about CQC. There will be 3 award winners throughout the state. Each one will receive $3,000 scholarship, the winners. So we're hoping that Ella will win one of those. We submitted the application on February 8th, and we will get an announcement sometime in April about who those winners are. So I'll bring that to council when that time comes. Ella has a pretty extensive background on her contributions to the community, including not only through her school, but she's part of our youth advisory board, and she's currently a co-president. So with that, I'll introduce Ella, and she'll just give you a little bit of history on kind of her experiences with community engagement and kind of what she's planning into the future in the computer world. So Ella.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So I'm Ella Williams. I am currently a senior at Jackson High School, as well as a Running Start student at Cascadia College. And so for those of you who don't know, Running Start is a dual enrollment program where juniors and seniors at high school can also take college classes like at one of our community colleges here and get credit for both college and high school. So that's a really nice program there. So some things I have been doing, as Martin mentioned, I am currently the co-president of the Mill Creek Youth Advisory Board, and we are like this volunteer group through the city that I'm sure most of you know about, and we help at a lot of the city events. And so some of those that I really enjoyed are the trunk or treat. We have also done the Christmas tree lighting, and the one that's coming up most recently is the Easter extravaganza, which we are already starting preparations for. So also, as he mentioned, I've been in a couple of different officer positions here. I started out as the secretary of the Mill Creek Youth Advisory Board, in which I helped with a lot of attendance for meetings, for events, also helping like get sign-up sheets for that so that our volunteers can actually sign up for them, go to those events, and also just answering emails about questions that our volunteers had. Then, of course, in my next 2 years, so what I'm currently doing is I am the co-president of the Mill Creek Youth Advisory Board. So I help run the different meetings we have, as well as just helping our other officers in their positions with anything they might need. So some additional events that aren't like directly through the city, but we just do as well, is we help a lot with our local food banks. We also help the schools a little bit. We have a mentorship program with the Tambar Creek Elementary School where we help students like gain more confidence, improve their communication skills, which is really neat. And we've also done a lot of tutoring, especially during COVID, when a lot of students were struggling with their online classes. And so we held like Zoom meetings. This was actually through the National Honor Society at Jackson High School, which I was also in for a year. And we helped like elementary school and middle schoolers with their math, English, whatever they needed help with. And so I actually really enjoyed tutoring so much that I continued that on through to this year. And I'm currently also helping tutor through schoolhouse.world, which is also connected to Khan Academy, for those of you who know that. And that is online tutoring, and I was offered to help tutor SAT boot camps. And so I helped with math SAT to help high schoolers feel more prepared for that test because it can be very stressful, I know from experience. Another volunteer organization I've helped with is through the Equity and Access Advisory Council for Everett Public School System. And so I started that around January of 2022 when my sister told me about it. And so just helping out with making our whole schools more diverse and equitable for everyone. Something that I really enjoyed that we've been working on is the diverse libraries movement, where we brought just diverse books through all the schools so that way each student can feel that they are represented and heard in their schools. So just some additional things I've been doing are some clubs. At Jackson High School, I was a part of DECA for 2 years, and I was actually able to make it to the state competitions both years, though of course one of them, it was all online because of COVID. The second one, I was able to go to Bellevue, and it was a very fun experience to be there with some of the other club members. In that second year, I was also became the new membership director, so I attended all of those officer meetings and helped promote the club to new members. And then currently I'm also in WIB at the University of Washington, Bothell. So that's a little bit weird because I said I was at Cascadia College, not UW, but because we share campus, we also share a lot of resources like library, the clubs, and also the Activities and Recreational Center. So WIB is Women in Business. It is a club that helps, promote DI through encouraging women in more male-dominated fields. And also it provides just really helpful resources and networking opportunities to its members. So that is really cool. So like I mentioned, we also have access to the Activities and Recreational Center. So I actually work there right now. I started out as a front desk staff where I helped students as they came in with any questions they might have, just grading them. Then in my second year, I became the events specialist and helped plan events in our big event space that we have on our top floor. And then just recently, I was actually promoted to become the building manager. And so I help supervise the other staff, the building, and help deal with any problems that might arise. So thankfully, I am going to be able to continue in some of my clubs and in this role because next year I'm going to be going to the University of Washington, Bothell. While there, I plan to major in computer science and software engineering, as well as business administration as my minor. This connects to, of course, the DECA stuff that I did, as well as some of the summer internships I've been doing. The first one I did at Leadership Snohomish County. I helped improve their website for just making it better for users, more accessible, which was really nice. And then my second time I did it through Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, where I helped with research projects and also just their fun summer events that they did. So moving forward, of course, I want to try and get more summer internships because those are really helpful, and getting them more related to my major. So more software engineering stuff would be really helpful for me. And then this connects, of course, to what I want to become long-term, which is a programmer here at one of the tech companies that we have in this greater Seattle area. All right, thank you. Do you have any questions for me about this?
I thought I was busy.
I know.
Congratulations, you're going to represent Mill Creek well. Jody, do you want to get a picture with us?
That would be great, yeah, let's get a picture.
When I was reading all that Ella does, it was so amazing. But I'm just like, do you have the same 24 hours?
I know. I'm
Well, Ella, put you right in the center.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't understand half the word she said.
Listing it all. Very impressive. I know, I was like, how do you? Oh, yeah, I knew. No, I knew. No, I knew. I knew this. We thought, oh, very nice. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Martin, would you like to be in a picture with Ella?
Yeah. Oh, Martin, come on. Come on. All right.
Any pictures?
Just lay it.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'll take the end. I'll take the end. Get in there.
All right, 1, 2. Oh my God. You're not really.
Congratulations.
Ella, congratulations.
Before we move on to Jody, Beth, online, if you could get in touch with Adrian via the website with your email address so we can follow up with you on the issue you raised, that'd be great. Hey, Jody. You're working harder tonight.
Yes.
Right, tonight we are going to talk results of our performance survey for 2023. And so all survey results are from 2023, except where I'm making comparisons to 2022. This survey was distributed to the public between June and October this year. Last year for 2022, results were through May through September. So same number of months out in the world, but we shifted it so that it was more in line with all of our programs so we could promote it out in the world. All right, next slide. Thank you. So which of the following best describes you? And then obviously you can see that majority of the folks answering live in Mill Creek. We'll just go right to the next slide because that gives us better numbers. So in this 230, so 75%, a little over 75% live in Mill Creek. And why this is significant is that based on the retreat comments, I went ahead and did a breakout for the data with just Mill Creek residents. So as we go forward, we'll be showing that. So 2022 versus 2023 results, and then also Mill Creek residents versus all responses. So you'll see that. Okay, next slide. So here you see that in 2022, we had 347 responses, and 2023, we had 305 in total responses. And then in Mill Creek residents, 277 in 2022 versus 233. We don't really have any reasons right now why we have less. We actually did more of a push on this, so it's interesting. We did more advertising. We pushed it at every event. We talked about it constantly. So this will be interesting to see over time how this ebbs and flows, and so we are always hoping for more results. But I did have a discussion with a person who does all the social media in CTAC, and she was talking about months-long campaign that they did. They have 32,000 residents, and they received 500 results after doing months of paid advertising on social media. So I feel pretty good because we didn't do any paid advertising on social media with this, but it might be something we want to look at for the future. So those are just kind of things whenever we get, whenever we're dealing with results like this, we just want to, know, well, what's the situation? How can we make it better? What can we do better next year? And that's where we're at. So we will try more. Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory? How did the residents get the survey? Was it mailed out? Was it, how do we distribute it? I forgot.
So we send it out through social media. I mean, we put it out on social media. We put it out on the website. We do advertising in our city highlights. We do advertising in the Millstream newsletter. I believe we even did an ad in Greet magazine, but I'll have to look back at that. So, but again, we didn't do specific paid advertising on social media, so that's just another step that we
So
can
we
do.
promote the survey and then there's a link that they go to?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so there's a link that they go to. It's a SurveyMonkey survey. It's really quick. It was 13 questions and and 2 of those were about whether they wanted more information. Oh, also we did send an email to all those who signed up or who participated last year that gave us their email for information, letting them know that the survey was available.
and is
So-
this a common way it's done? Is this how many cities do this, or do some mail out surveys, do some, I'm just curious, or is this the common practice?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I don't
So-
know either. I don't know specifically for municipalities, for other cities, what they do. My question earlier about talking with CTAC was specifically, you know, how do they work regarding surveys online? Because there are some things you can and can't do, and ways to promote it. So that's where those questions came from and how I came across that information. So. But we can look at different things to do for next year, and always happy to take your comments and suggestions for sure. All right, next slide. So how would you rate the overall quality of services services provided by the city of Mill Creek? So we had 31 or 42 and 31%. I'm just gonna actually go to the next slide because that's gonna give us the most information. So total responses, 73.9% for total responses in 2023. And then for Mill Creek residents, as you can see, those 4 and 5-star ratings of very satisfied, we had a significant increase. And we were happy about that. One of the questions that Martin had as we were reviewing all this was were we specific enough about what stars 2, 3, and 4 meant? So next year, as we do this, we'll give a little bit more structure to this. So 1 would be is not satisfied at all, 2 not satisfied, 3 will be neutral, 4 satisfied, and 5 very satisfied. So that's just another change that he's asked us to make for next year to make it more clear. But we were, again, very happy with the results for total responses and Mill Creek residents that in general, they're happy with the services we're providing. And next slide. This is significant. Please rate the following. I feel safe in Mill Creek. These numbers are great. Would strongly agree. We're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. Actually, the next slide. Sorry, I think we'll just probably land on this just because this is the information that gives us perspective. So, for the question, I feel safe in Mill Creek, for agree and strongly agree. In all of these cases, I took usually the top 2, added those together, and then compared those with how they added together in each of the other categories. SurveyMonkey doesn't do this automatically from year to year, so we just had to do this ourselves. So Mill Creek residents 68.2% versus 65% in 2022. And total responses 72.79% versus 66% 57 and 66.57%. So clearly there's an agree or strongly agree, there's an upward tick in how safe folks are feeling in Mill Creek. So good work, Chief. Next slide. One of the most interesting parts of the survey for us is actually reading through all the comments, and there are lots of comments. So what we do is we go through the comments. This is what we did last year. We tag them so each comment gets tagged with 1, 2, 3, depending on how many things they address, with a tag that says whether it's for safety, security they're questioning, or any one of these topics. So this year, what I found is, and this was interesting because I didn't see this last year, I found qualifiers. So I feel safe, but, or I feel safe except this one little thing, or this one thing, or something very specific to my neighborhood, or something because of my neighbor. So I had to get a little bit more creative with that. And that's why on the very first one, you see out of the 29 responses, 8 of those said, I feel safe, but, and then they just had one thing. And then you can go through and read. I don't think we'll address all of these, but safety, security, crime, I feel safe, but theft, burglaries, drugs, drug dealers, panhandlers, parking lot safety. I would say that parking lot safety came up many times. Folks did not feel are seeing lots of increased transient homeless activity in the areas of like Fred Meyer's, Lowe's, Safeway. Those things popped up fairly often. We had 13 generally positive people that were, you know, pretty happy. They're happy that they live in Mill Creek. So that was good. They appreciate that. We had comments about appreciating safety patrols and the increase in that. Feeling safe with the police officers and their responsiveness, and particularly being kind and helpful. So that's wonderful. Again, traffic, speeding, congestion, drugs, police visibility, trash. Trash was a big one, and also to the point of the comment earlier about tagging came up a lot. So there's a lot of concern around that. And then police and staffing, not so much. So that's, and we can address questions along the way, or as we get to the end. It's totally up to you.
Jody,
Yeah.
were these sorted by resident, non-resident, or was that even possible to do?
No, and so had I had that perspective, because I did all the comments, I sorted all the comments at the original request of Martin for that before the retreat, and it wasn't until the retreat that kind of came up about wanting that. I do believe I could go back and do that though. So let me see if it's something that's not, you know, super labor intensive, but I'll see.
Maybe
if I
Scott
can.
could do that as payback for you. His report. It's interesting the difference in the strongly agree and agree around feeling safe in the community, the difference between folks that live here and folks that are visiting. And I just wonder if there's any correlation there in the comments as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Let me take a look at that and I'll see if I can pull that up.
Jody,
Yes.
and maybe this is a question for the police chief as well. That's twice we've heard some significant conversation about tagging in the city. Where is it predominantly happening? Because honestly, I haven't really seen it, but I'd like to know.
I can answer that question, but in my travels throughout the city, which is our daily basis, we're seeing the majority of that tagging occurring along the 132nd Street corridor, as well as around the DRCC as well. Some of those areas that are not traveled as frequently as others. But it is there, and I have discussed it with the Public Works Manager as well, and so we are aware of it and doing what we can to address it. Thank you.
I would like to draw some attention to this positive comment down here, on the general feeling that increased police visibility is important, and that they have, were they saying that they've seen increased traffic speeding enforcement? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah,
So,
so in the
so
general.
that's really
positive.
good that they've noticed that, Chief's plan is working and that there is more, presence out there and people are noticing. So that's good.
True, I agree. There were several comments that said that. Right, we're just gonna skip ahead to. There you go. Two more. There we go. Two more. There we go. So please rate the following statement. I have confidence in the city of Mill Creek's leadership. Again, this is another one where 2023 over 2022 showed great increase. Mill Creek residents. I'm sorry, for some reason the numbers didn't pop up there.
Could you go back one
Yep,
slide so we can
let's
see?
do that. I might be able to, on my slide, pull that up. Let me grab it.
Oops. Thanks, we see it. I think you probably hit a,
I did.
zoom in
I
button.
definitely did. Let me find that on there.
Do we have a spot for comments
Here,
on,
yes.
like on this question so that we could find out like specifically the ones who, well, the ones who are happy, what they're happy about more, or, and the ones who are disagreeing, maybe what they're disagreeing about?
Are we talking about this question?
Yeah, on the, having confidence in leadership.
Yes, so the question, we'll get to the comments on this one as well.
Okay, perfect.
I was gonna try to find,
That'd be helpful.
What is interesting is a third of your respondents agree. They have confidence. The biggest number.
yes.
And a large segment neither agree nor disagree. Obviously, there's nothing really to set your answer on.
What I found interesting was that there's like 9% that disagree. Otherwise, it was no answer or
Mhm,
agreed.
mhm,
And it was
Yeah.
a huge jump from the year prior.
mhm. Wow, that's
Okay,
just
I
the
have
information.
percentages here, and so I'll just tell you though, I'll add them to the slides later, but I do have the percentages in the notes, so. For total responses. In 2022, it was 30.91% agree
Which
and
slide,
strongly
which
agree.
slide are we talking about?
So, oh, sorry, can you go to the next slide? So if you look at total responses, the blue line here,
Mhm.
for 2022, 30.91% agree and strongly agree, right? Okay, so in 2023, 46.71% agree or strongly disagree. So
Strongly
those are the
agree.
numbers. And then, that for residents, Mill Creek residents in 2022, 29.19% agree or strongly disagree.
Agree or strongly agree.
A string, agree or strongly agree, yes, top two. For Mill Creek, residents in 2023, 43.23% agree or strongly agree. So that's a huge jump. I mean, in front for this kind of data, that's a really big jump to see. So that's wonderful news. And like I said, I don't know why that didn't pop up, but I will add that. Okay, you can go to the next for comments. So these are the comments. If you remember last year, a lot of the comments really did surround city turnover and past issues. That some of that did linger, especially in the comments earlier in the cycle. And around politics, drama, a lot of those things didn't change, but we did add new categories, which meant that there were things that nobody brought up last year that they did bring up this year. So diversity was one that popped up, and I put it on there, even though it was only one person. That was the first time that particular issue had come up, or that particular desire to talk about. Maintenance issues, more needs to be done to maintain and beautify common areas throughout the city. That didn't particularly come up in this category last year, and then safety and crime. So, so overall though, as the numbers showed, generally happier with, or agree or strongly disagree with the direction of leadership from Oak Creek.
Politics and drama, 1 of 10. Is that this year or last year?
These
are
are
this
for
year's
this year.
comments.
That was for this year. So what, do you know what the number of politics and drama was for last year? Was it?
Well, those were just her
Significantly higher.
characterizing the comments. Did you track them the same way for the prior year?
I did I did as much as I could for certain categories, so we should be able to see. Let me see, I could pull up the 2022 results.
Yeah, I take those numbers a little bit of grain of salt because they're not saying they don't have confidence in the leadership because of what we're doing. They have concerns about what has happened in the past.
Yeah, that, like I said, that was the gist, because I remembered categorizing all of those, and so that was that same thing. You could tell that there were some people who just, they were kind of stuck on what had happened in the past. Do you want me to look up the 22? Data.
It's not necessary right now.
You know,
So-
the other comment I'll make about that is It'll be interesting to see, because in the past, when we've done this, we used to, I mean, where do people get their information? We used to have the Beacon active in the community in print. We used to have the View.
You very
We
active.
still have the View, but it doesn't focus as much on the local issues,
Right.
focuses on other issues, and News of Mill Creek has gone by the wayside as Rich has
Right.
moved on and retired. So it makes you wonder where residents are getting their information to form their opinions these
I'm
days.
sure there was a survey question about that.
Yeah, it's very hard to get information about the city and
Yeah.
bills that are passed or things that are going on, unless you go to the website.
Councilmember Duque?
I would say there's been an incredible uptick on the use and popularity of these discussions on Facebook groups. So I would say that I think that's where, so if whatever investment the city did in communications and marketing towards like press releases or things like that for those traditional outlets, now that those traditional outlets are not the same or not focused on the issues that they may have been before, then there should be a shift on what that engagement level looks like on those Facebook groups. Because there's quite a few, some more polarizing than others, but a lot of city topics are brought up, or issues that are related to what we discuss. But what I always find intriguing is there's not it's actually very, anyways, I'll leave it there. But I think there's some intent there as we're looking through what this means, or as Councilmember Paddock, I think I heard you say, I don't know if it was on the microphone, but it would be interesting if there was something on the survey that relates to that.
I think there was a survey question on.
There is one on
Yeah.
communication, but it doesn't specifically, and where you get your information, and which we'll see later, but it doesn't, we could delve into that a little bit more. So I did found the 2022 results for that city turnover / council turnover, and in 2022 was 48 people commented on that. So this time, so half, yeah. So good. Good improvement. All right, computer. All right, next slide. Okay, so this was a new question. This was a new question on the slide this year, and this directly came out of the retreat from last year, which was the needing to know more information around being a clean, safe, and well-maintained community. This gave us a lot of really good information. As you can see here, we're gonna go to the numbers on the next slide. So our overall numbers are really good. City overall, 35%, 35.67% and 47. Can we go to the next slide? I just want to look at something really.
Are we gonna
Oh,
put
no,
words
let's go
with,
back.
are we gonna put words with those ratings? So I mean, what if, I'm not sure what everyone thinks is good. I mean, to me, good is meeting expectations. Excellent would be exceeding expectations. So I don't know
Can you go
what,
back one
when the
slide?
public looks at this and sees good, what they necessarily mean by that.
It's also hard, I think, to know, are they thinking about the city maintain things, or are they thinking about the association maintain things?
Well, it looks
Because
like we break this out.
Yeah, so we
But
say
do
the
they
city
know?
overall, city parks and green spaces, bathrooms, play structures, neighborhood and street. We tried to break it down as much as we could without getting, super in the weeds with this, but city streets, state highways. And I think that we may not have wanted to add medians and sidewalks necessarily into that one.
So the survey was asking about these categories specifically.
Yeah, on the left.
Okay.
So all of these, so that for the city overall, those were the results along the top, then city parks and green spaces and down the left. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed pretty clear the way it was drawn out that here's kind of city responsibility just based on the questions. And to some extent, the state, which is the ones that were the lowest rated, were the
Yeah.
things that we probably, I mean, we've talked about that numerous times on the eyesores that we see are really the medians and 164, 132nd that we don't have necessarily responsibility for,
Exactly.
But does the public know that?
well, and should they care? I mean, it's still a reflection on the city. We can't be like, well, those dang state people. They still see it as as a reflection of the city that we live in.
Yeah, if you added 164th, would they say, is that our responsibility? Do they think that's part of Mill Creek?
I mean, yeah, part of that is an education piece that we've talked about for a long time, and hopefully with increased staff and more time, we'll be able to do more of that. It's definitely needed. I think our new website will go a long ways to helping us get better control over the information that people see when they come to the website, making it easier and letting them find that information out. It's a difficult thing to find right now. But if we served it up in a little bit easier way, I think that people would be willing to take the time. Right now, they would have to go dig, and that's hard. Everybody's tired.
Councilmember Duque?
Oh, thank you. It was actually in reference to, we had that kind of, when we were thinking about the different locations, or immediately when I raised, I was like, oh, it'd be good if we had some kind of, not a disclaimer, but something at the top saying like, this is what the city is responsible for. But then Councilmember Paddock's comment about like, but is that, do we need them to care, or do we need that? And I thought, you're right, because it's actually our responsibility, even though it might be private property, it is our responsibility as a city to then reach out to that private property owner to identify whatever that issue might be. A specific, speaking of tagging, that is our responsibility. So the person who comes into our city or who responds to survey doesn't need to know. Technically, that's not ours, so we're not failing there. We know, but it's not, at the end of the day, what we need to do is note it and then see how we internally need to figure out how to work on it to build that, either that relationship with that property owner or with Washington State Department, like the road, whatever it needs to be, that we need to be the one who makes those connections, because that's not what a resident needs to worry about. They just want it taken care of. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah. And there are things that we're working on now, like the Adopt a Street program that Barb has been so passionate about. And that will help things like that, because it gives us another opportunity to solve a problem that maybe we can't solve right here, right now, but it's a tool. So
I have a question. Knowing that 527 and Highway 132nd, Highway 96, those are state controlled. And you must have had a thought when you put it on the survey that, if we're not going to be able to do anything about it, why are we putting it on the survey? Is it because we wanted to know if it was bad enough that we would have to get out there anyway and do it ourselves? Or what was the logic of putting it on the survey?
We
well,
do
those,
medians
it's
on
not
private-
the whole thing. It's like we're
Yeah,
we're
132nd, we own half of
right?
it.
It's
We
kind
do
of
the
like
medians on 527, don't we? Yeah.
all of 527, but I'm thinking of 132nd. Yeah, where there's a divide
So both of these are
on
ones
the
that
other
we
side of the
control.
street too.
Yes, this whole list, I believe, are things that we control.
So it's interesting in looking at this, if these are ones that we control, I look at this and I go, that's a good performance until I get down to those bottom two. There's an opportunity. That's not as great a performance.
Yeah.
So, and if we control them, then great. Here's first time I'm seeing a really good opportunity for us to improve. is on
Well,
those two.
but it depends on how you define excellent, good, and average, because if you add up the excellent, good, and average, you're at 80%.
Well, but then you look down, but if you look at how we perform trends,
Yes.
excellent, good, and average, all the way down, all of those particular areas, it's a great performance until I get down to 527 and 132nd.
Yeah,
There's an area you could improve
hear
it.
you.
You could bring it up.
Yeah.
That's the point. And again, we're talking about a benchmark survey, which really what a benchmark survey says is how have you performed in the past to today? Are you getting better? Are you staying the same? Or are you getting worse? We could nitpick this thing to death, but the bottom line of a benchmark is, are you staying the same, getting worse, or getting better? And so far, what I'm seeing is we're getting better every category we benchmarked,
Right.
which is a great performance and something we definitely should talk to our citizens about and promote. And if there was media here, like the old days when I first started, there was like three or four media people here taking notes, there'd be a story about this in the local papers talking about, hey, this city's had a great turnaround. You may not know this, and most citizens don't know this stuff. But they have really improved in all these different areas. It's a great story. Maybe we could put out a press release for them and they'd pick it up and write about it. But I think I can't keep quiet any longer. This is a really great benchmark. I'm trying to find something you could do better, and I haven't seen anything until we got to this one. Here's an opportunity.
Councilmember Duque?
I think the mayor said, well, from my understanding, the excellent, good, average, and poor. I really liked your, the mayor's, point of the meet expectations. In that aspect, I wonder if that's the type of, even though I know that we're trying to keep consistent with it, with our wording, especially, it's very important in surveys. It seems like that makes a lot more sense when it comes to these types of surveys for that, because it is hard to determine what average is compared to, you know, what city versus meet expectations is very based off of their own internal, what they're hoping they think is the minimum that should be, the city should be doing. So I don't know if that is any helpful at all, or it just messes things up.
Well, no,
guidance.
no, it's always helpful because it helps us, you know, when we go back in, we don't want to make big, huge changes, but we are still in kind of the infancy of collecting all of this and figuring this survey process out for the city. And I think a lot more is going to come out, a lot more information and help will come out after we have, you know, do the, with 1961 and with the comp plan and everything. We'll have a lot more information from surveys that may or may not be helpful. But as we move forward, we don't want to make big changes, but those types of changes are helpful, is just kind of like tweaking it and defining that. And if we can, if this versus the, you know, strongly agree, somewhat agree, whatever, I mean, like, we can work on those kinds of things.
And here's why I bring that up is I don't know how people look at it. If they look at it, A, B, C, D, figure excellent is A, good is a B, average is a C, and poor is a D. If you're average, you're 70 percentile. If you look at average as just the average, you could view it as the 50 percentile. So that's why I just don't know how different people approach it, but that's why I like the idea of meet expectations or exceed expectations, because that's really what we're trying to grade.
I'll make a note. All right, next slide. So these are the comments for that that section. And this gave a lot of really good information. Nothing that we really didn't see from many of the other sides, but it was interesting because reading through the comments, I kept hearing things that had come up at council, different things that you guys have like talked about at, you know, and we've heard back and forth from people. So I don't think that there were any real surprises here. There were several people who gave specific locations, like I said earlier, where their specific neighborhood, their specific street, they had a, you know, an issue. And the good thing about that is that those things we can pass on and those are actionable. That makes it easy in some ways to help out and to make a difference. General overgrown bushes, medians, how many times have we heard that at first? So the trash, graffiti, those are things that that we can, yeah, improve on, do something better. And so I'm excited to see what happens with this question, however it goes forward for next year, to see, you know, the improvement in all of this.
I'm just surprised only one person commented on the welcome sign.
I know.
Yes,
Right?
only one person will be happier soon.
Right. You know, I think the signs though go to that kind of like overall feeling of maintenance and,
Yeah.
you know, people tend to lump those things together if they're not super observant, but yeah, those are, so no surprises. Next slide. We like this one. We always love to know, you know, who's planning on going to all of our events. It was kind of interesting when we looked back at this, that how we kind of looked at.
We're the least popular brand.
Yep.
What, well, and you know, we're always working on that, finding new ways to bring folks in, and but this is good information for us and how to gauge the popularity of our different events. Can you go to the next slide? We were actually pretty surprised to see that the Festival of Trees and Santa Parade and tree lighting were, you know, our most popular events. So that was good to know.
Look at that. Hey,
That was good. Yeah.
that was packed. That was a really, really neat event.
It was. At first, for the Santa parade, I can remember, the tree lighting, we were really a little bit worried because it looked like everybody got there at the end of the parade and then they left. And what we didn't know was that there were some other events like hot chocolate being served and things, and other events back up at Town and Country Market. So people just kind of had turned around, gone back up there, and then they all came back. So we were happy to see that. But at first we were like, oh no, there's too much of a difference in, time from when the parade ended and when that started. So.
You added a lot of events this last year too, which made it very popular. People stuck around.
Oh, for
Yeah, you had
that
DJs
particular.
and your own hot chocolate
Yeah.
and photos and all, you had a bunch of booths.
The photo booth was so popular. We're definitely doing that again. There'll be some changes and we're going to integrate more with what we do with the Santa Parade. Jackson High School did a completely separate event across the street and we didn't know anything about it. So we'll talk to them and that was a great thing. They even came over and asked our MC to say something about their event. So that was kind of cool. But so those are the kinds of things that as we're working with the chamber on these events that and they're working with Mill Creek Town Center Association, the new committee, how that'll all come together will be real interesting for this year, but definitely something we'll move forward with.
Councilmember Duque.
Apologies, can you remind me when this survey was open for these responses to have come in?
Yeah, so these ones went from June to October. All right, next slide. These are all the comments regarding additional community resources. So these were this was some of my, these were some of my favorite comments to read. We definitely have a trend with a bigger library. We heard that a lot. Bigger library for many reasons, but a lot of people really felt like that was a center of the community. So that was good. Some random, rec programs and things like that they wanted, different programs that folks wanted to see. Ice rink I thought was kind of fun. Dog park came up a few times and multi-use space actually came up quite a bit. Town center and farm and business concerns. Mostly those surrounded the vacancies in town center and folks wanting more like retail shops and less, doctor's offices and those types of mortgage, real estate, that kind of thing. And I think that that's another opportunity for education though, is, folks not understanding, that the city doesn't necessarily have anything to do with that, but that's hard to explain without passing the buck, right? This time what I saw were people trying to help give solutions. So someone mentioned that make it easier to do business. Another person said grants for new businesses. So I thought that this time over last time, we were getting people who were, talking about what could be done. And that definitely came up in a couple different areas. So parks and trails, maintenance of North Creek Trail, that came up quite a bit in other areas too. Family resources, senior childcare, police presence, more patrols. Code enforcement came up a few times. So, but yeah, nothing super surprising other than the ideas about what could be done. Next slide. The city of Mill Creek is headed in the right direction. We'll skip ahead to the compilation. There we go. Agree and strongly agree. So we went from 29% of Mill Creek residents to 47% heading in the right direction. So I think that that's great. And then total response, same thing, 30 to 52%. Those are great numbers. We have comments on that one? Will you skip to the next one?
The verbiage is the same in all these questions, right?
Say that again.
The verbiage is exactly the same year over year in the questions, right? No words were changed.
There were some, if there were big changes, I would note it. So there were that one should have been very similar. Yeah. If I added a new tag like this one, I actually had to re-tag everything because so many so many different comments came in that were different over last year. So all of the ones with stars are a variation of a new or an updated category or tag is what I call it. So housing growth and development, that was huge. Obviously, 22 people commented on that. There were two sides to this. Some people said we have too many townhomes and apartments, and then others said we need more density. So that's the first time we had somebody again saying that we need that. So there were a few that those came up on. Traffic safety and police, dedicating more resources to police department. There was a general feeling in that category that, and we've addressed this before, but that apartments equaled crime. Like that is something that comes up pretty regularly for overcrowding. And maintenance, trash, homelessness. Yeah, nothing else new there. Next slide. I really like this question because this is one of those questions where we educate a little bit, and so people do get a good understanding. So if you live in Mill Creek, about 8% of your property tax goes to the city of Mill Creek to pay for services. The rest goes to schools, the state, the county, and the fire authority, the library, and special districts. Question, do you feel you are getting your money's worth for your city tax dollars? So if we go to the compilation slide, 2 ahead. There we go. Definitely getting my money's worth and getting my money's worth combined. Mill Creek residents went from 31.39% up to 46.93%, and total responses from 27.98 to 38.87. So that's good.
What's so interesting to me about that question is that property taxes went up so much this last year. Obviously not because of anything that we've done, but it's just, it's counterintuitive to me. But nonetheless, they're getting value out of it, which is fantastic. And I wrote on there, I love this question too.
Yeah.
That's a really good
That's a
one.
good one.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. Which of the following do you use to stay up to date on what's happening in Mill Creek? Check all that apply.
Wow.
So social media, Facebook is a big one.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's basically it. The website, Mill Creek website and social media.
Yeah.
Councilmember Duque?
But specifically, social media is in relation to our social media channels. Like it didn't
Correct.
say like Facebook community groups or any, like it wasn't a qualifier for
True.
other sources there, right?
True.
So that but we also didn't say just these two. I'm trying to think of I can't remember what the question was. And it's not important for
No.
right now, but it's more so that we know if that's an important qualifier to like include, is it, through your Facebook community groups or? Because did people answer these in themselves or was
Yeah,
it dropped
this
out?
was this question, how it was stated. So at Mill Creek and at Mill Creek PD.
Yeah, so so
Yeah.
it is specific to.
Right, but
Our
that's a good
channels.
point. We could include other channels that might go up, but
And then, I not listed here, don't know how important it is, but something about like either community groups, because people who are part of Kiwanis or who are part of Rotary, they might know through their groups, or maybe it's through the PTA. So there begins some conversation that way, if that would be an option. And then a lot of community groups use that library bulletin board. And like the YMCA bulletin board, maybe not as much, but I don't know if this is helpful as additions. But just flagging those might be things we want to look for either.
well, since this year we are gonna try to do more of what you suggested, which is the peach jar type of, or PTA, those types of things. It will be interesting. We won't have any data, but we'll, as we add that, that's a good idea, so.
Yeah, because because there is a social media / next door, right? So that's a general, so that could have been like community groups, maybe it's from that one, like, or Facebook groups. But then if there's any, I'm trying to think about like if someone got their information from they follow the Mill Creek Chamber, right? So then that potentially would fall under social media or next door because they follow that group and that's like a partnered organization. So it could fall there. I'm just wondering if there's more in-depth we could go to or if it's unnecessary. But I leave that to you, up to you as a professional.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Thanks, Mayor. How much outreach do we do to the printed newspapers? And I know there's only like one and maybe occasionally two. It seems that according to the numbers, over a third of the people get their information or updates from the printed paper. Are we doing things like press releases and keeping them in the loop and notifying them of city events and issues? Because I know I've brought this up before and in talking to some of them, they say no, that they're not the city isn't very communicative with the printed newspapers. And so when we were talking earlier about how do we get a bigger footprint out there, I think that might be one of the reasons is that perhaps we're not participating in the outreach process with these folks and utilizing especially a printed paper that hits, 8,000 homes, each cycle.
So we do, everything that we do send out goes to our media list, which includes all the printed newspapers. So, but to answer the question about whether we do enough to go, if enough gets sent out, I would say that, and in fact, this is one of my goals this year is more press releases. But to be honest, that it's kind of one of those things that's just like it in the situation where we're in not to make excuses, but we weigh that. So how much time is it going to take to do a press release and what's the bang for the buck versus can we put this out on the social channels where we know a lot of people are going and on our website and stuff. So absolutely, we do send press releases and notices and all of that to all of our media list. Whether they pick it up and run with it, we don't know. We don't always keep track of that data, but we could do better with that for sure.
And one of the reasons I bring that up is that most of our seniors in the community are not, of course, social media savvy. And so they depend on the magazines, they depend on the newspapers. And anytime whether it's going down to the Sawmill Cafe or even LA Fitness, you see someone sitting there reading the local magazine or the local newspaper. So I think there's a lot more value in that than just maybe doing an internet press release, especially for a local community. I bet if we were more impactful in outreach for our elderly population, we'd probably get a little bit more participation in these two. Just some food for thought.
That's a good point. We did more advertising in Great Magazine this year because they were one of our sponsors. So we did some trade and that was helpful, but specifically to the senior population, we haven't. So that's a good point and we'll do that. The other thing is that we do quarterly advertise or do 12 pages in the Mill Creek Living magazine. So that 12 pages is part rec guide, but it's also part information about council. It is part information about our senior community. It is 3 pages usually dedicated to 1 events and 2 are things that are concerning or concerns for the city. So we call those city highlights. And for instance, this edition that's coming out at the beginning of March will have an entire page on the vision survey and comp plan survey and how folks can get involved and be a part of that. Martin's letter to the whole community touches on all of those points and usually tries to reinforce whatever it is, the messaging that we're putting out. And then one of the pages will be about our new Adopt a Street program, which also addresses many of the concerns that the community has. So to the best of our ability, I would say that we're trying to reach all the channels. I think that's just it is something that's important to us too. So thank you for that.
And just lastly on that, I think the housing strategies and the housing models that we looked at also pretty much expand on what I was just saying of how the majority, maybe not the majority, but a large population of Mill Creek is elderly, is our senior living communities and whatnot. So yeah,
Yeah.
just a little more food for thought. Thanks.
Councilmember Steckler?
Well, I was actually gonna go down that similar road, so I'll reinforce it with a different thought and the same thought. I was looking at social media, next door getting that single alone, that big of a chunk right there, which I find really interesting, and the print newspaper,
Can we go
that's,
to the next slide? I'm sorry, I'll give you a little bit more, go, one back. One forward. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So that's so you can see the resident numbers versus the total responses. So the community is feeling like we're communicating better, but I wanted to go to the, sorry, one back. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's. some
can you go to
numbers
the
for
one that I was just talking about though, with the, next door on it, go forward? Is it, where was the slide we were just looking at?
Sorry about that.
There, nope.
Questions.
Back.
Which slide on that?
Question 10. There you go.
Yeah. You, the marketing department is doing an excellent job in communicating to the citizens. I've read your stories, in Living and Greet and all that, in communicating as to all the events that we're doing. You know, when there's a party in the parks or the pianos or any of all these events, they are well communicated with those. I think that what you're doing right there is an excellent program. It's working really well. And I think you see that by the response. They know about the events. They know when they're happening. They're going to them. They're enjoying them. If they don't know about them till they're over, they're not too happy. So you're doing a really good job there. I think the opportunity here is that they don't really know much about how the city's being run and the city council meetings. We used to have much better information about what's happening in our city, what's going on, not the events. You got that covered. But it's more, what are we talking about here? What happened at the city council meeting? And when I was looking at this, kind of jumping on Cavallari and another one, the social media, a very close personal friend, I won't say who, but has a job as a content marketer. And these are the people that a lot of companies are starting to hire, and they build their own next door, but company doesn't call it company name. It's a different name. But basically what they're hiring is somebody to be the person who produces that website, blog, or whatever. But it's a content writer. It's gonna be somebody who can write. And they eventually attract the kind of people. So if you had somebody who came out and just started writing about what's going on in Mill Creek, but about what happened at city council, about what are the issues that's going on, what's happening about the police, are we really got enough police out there? What about this thing that came up around tagging? Where is it happening? And started blogging about it. I think people would flock to it. What would happen is certain people would say, hey, somebody's talking about this. Somebody an invisible person that came to city council and watched a city council meeting and then went home and started creating this blog. And the same idea, now you were talking about, I remember Fred Philbrook with The View telling me, John, we are always looking for people to write for these local papers. I'll publish an article. If you want to write an article about what happened at city council, I'll publish it. And I said, I don't think a councilman should write a story about what happened at city council. That's not looking really good. But if I was some other person that just had a city council corner, and if you look at people like, Pam Pruitt's corner, or I forgot the guy, Terry Ryan's corner, even Mark Harmsworth still writes a story, and he hasn't been a representative for years, but they're writing stories about what they saw or heard. Nobody's really writing about what's going on at city council meetings. Now, you guys don't have the time to do that. I know how overloaded you are, but maybe we could look into, I'm kind of looking at Martin right now, maybe there's a way we could look at hiring a consultant, a freelancer, who would come in and be a content marketer. Content marketers are just really good writers that would create the blog, that would create what you're talking about, Vince. Yeah, and they would be the beat writer. They would publish the article every time we have a city council meeting, send it over to The View. Would The View publish it? Yeah. Yeah, because you know what? What's the negative about The View right now? They don't have enough local stuff going into it. They need some local stuff. Article on the front page. What's happening in city council this week? What was the good news? You could write a beat about this benchmarking study. It's a great study, a lot of good things happening, couple opportunities that the cities can jump onto. The local people would love to hear about it. So maybe a content marketer who, you know, is doing a lot of other projects, but is this person who creates a social media site and is also is a publisher for local papers. You could also send that to some of the other papers. Beacon, I'm sure, would pick it up in their online version. So you'd have it in the View, you'd have it in the Beacon, you could maybe get it in the Everett Herald. But it's something that is a lot of work if you're also managing a whole bunch of other projects like you guys are doing. But content marketers could whip this out. They would listen to the recording of the meeting. They don't have to be here. They could just listen to the recording and write it up. I think those two alone would expand the knowledge of what's happening in our city. You know, what stuff are they talking about? Because obviously, nobody likes to go to a city council meeting. Hi, you guys, the two of you. Yeah, it's just three. Okay, but you work for the city, that don't count.
John, we need to keep moving. We have others that want to comment. I think we
Sorry.
got your point. Good point. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I had, raised my hand because I wanted to, really comment on how much I appreciate that we are putting content in the Greek magazine. To me, the Greek magazine is going out to everyone and they are doing something that we are really missing, which is highlighting positive things going on in our community. And it's such a great positive message. And so it's really nice to see that we have content in there and that we're providing information in there. I'll circle just briefly back to what Councilmember Steckler said, because our time is of the essence, I think, in short. So I do agree. I think we need to be getting a message out there a little bit more. And I keep saying this, that we need to somehow be getting some messaging out about what's going on in city council meetings, what's happening, just so we're getting that story out. We're telling the story of what's actually happening in the city. I think there's a way to have a conversation about which methods would be used to actually get that question or that information out and what would actually work the best. And I did have a column briefly, so I think that would be an interesting conversation to maybe try to brainstorm what methods would be useful for getting out the positive messaging of what's happening in the city and how to tweak that. So I'll leave it at that, I think.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Duque.
In relation to how people are staying up to date on what's happening, we were talking about how people know or who all of those events that people are going to. I really think this is another opportunity. I love how you have been having the Parks and how the Parks and Recreation Board have with your partnership or however that's been working out, have had a booth at the Party at the Parks or at these events where, you know, either they're staffing it and they're volunteering and getting survey information or passing out, you know, information or just hearing from people. I'm not trying to put us on the spot, but I think it would be great if we had a booth for city council at, you know, one of these events and we sit there and, you know, take shifts. And even for like Mill Creek Festival, you know, that we're as city council members there and answering questions, and we can have a sign that says that we're city council so that we can be answering those questions and that it's not always staff or volunteers. But I think that would make a lot of sense.
That was a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it before.
I'm going to regret it later, by the way.
We talked about it before because we talked about the possibility at Mill Creek Sports Park for Party in the Parks. And we kind of had brainstormed different ideas that maybe not everybody obviously has to be there at the same time or should be there at the same time. But that there could be like shifts and things like that. So we love the idea. And if you guys are game, we're game to help put that together for sure. So
It's a much better idea than the mayor's
I was
dunk
thinking of
tank.
Mayor Pro Tem.
then the
dunk
mayor
tank.
dunk tank. Oh, no, I think that's a really good idea.
I am not doing a dunk tank. My husband's done that before for work. I am not doing a dunk tank.
Make some money. Okay. Next slide. Can I have access here?
While we're waiting for the slide,
There we
just
go.
one general
Yeah,
comment.
my phone.
I think, John, you hit on it, is my takeaway from what we're seeing is there's a lot of opportunity here. So for instance, when I saw the comment about North Creek Trail, there's an opportunity for us to say, we're applying for a grant from the county to deal with the trail. When I see the comments about the medians and the state of the repair, there's an opportunity for us to talk about how we're using the ARPA funds, the street sweeper, and what we're doing. So if in the absence of information, people fill it with assumptions and about what is or is not happening. And so it's on us to get that information out.
I agree. We have with the new website, ideas. One of those is, some sort of a newsletter or a blog that lives online, and that would be a perfect opportunity to a guest spot where maybe a council member writes something every month and it goes up there and you take turns, or, there's all kinds of opportunities for that, or some, submissions from the legislative committee or from the different committees to get more information out there. So we're always open to ideas like that.
Or we could use the state of the city again this year to deal with some of these things.
Yeah. Okay, so so this was just the last two questions on the survey 12 was we just thanked them for taking it in and asked if they wanted to receive an email. So tomorrow we'll send an email to all of those who signed up to receive that with this presentation. So we had 139 people say they wanted or provide their emails in 2022, and now 145 in 2023. So, and then this year we did something new, which was offer a prize. And this is something that we really pushed when we were trying to get people at all of the events to take the survey. That was that if they entered, usually they could, if they entered, they won a trinket or, some swag day of, but then in the end, we did present a grand prize to Christopher S., who won a $100 gift certificate from Elevated Sports and a beautiful 8-inch frosted bundt cake from Nothing But Cakes. So, all right, well, thank you. Any other questions? I will
Just
wrote
if you
down
could
some
jump back
notes.
to 11,
Oh.
question 11,
Sure.
just to give us a chance to say, great job, because obviously the community feels like the communication is fantastic, and great job to you and Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Are you going to channel Scott Harder for first item of new business?
Yes.
Oh, can I jump? I just want to say also too, great job to everybody because all the numbers pretty much went up.
Yes.
So that's a team effort. And so everyone, all the staff, all the police officers, the chief, all the public works, everyone is working and making those numbers go up. So congratulations and thank you to
Everyone
everybody.
raise their right hands.
Everybody pat yourself on the back.
Okay. So is there something in between? Or are we
Nope.
going straight to this?
No, now we'll go straight to Scott. Right?
Scott Harder.
And he's online, I think.
Good for you. Okay, so I'm here tonight to ask council to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with D2 Creative LLC. And this is for the website redesign that we're going to be embarking on hopefully soon. You may remember that in February of 2023, I'm clearly getting tired of talking. Yes, that was for Scott. 2023, you approved an ordinance allocating funds for the website redesign. You allocated and they were from ARPA funds, 100,000 for website and resident communication platform redesign. Our goal in that is upgrading the design and content of the city website, and that it'll provide improved communications and create an up-to-date web platform with improved function and features. The staff published the RFP for the website in December 2023, and we received 7 proposals from firms across the country. Following our review of the responses, the city identified D2 Creative LLC as having qualifications and ability to perform the services identified in the RFP. And a contract in the amount not to exceed 82,400 is attached. The city would like to set aside the remaining 17,600 allocated in ARPA or in the ARPA ordinance up to 100,000 to cover any change orders that might be needed. Design or development changes above and beyond the contract is just the little blurb that we put in there. And in the event of a change order, city staff would return to council to approve for approval of additional funding.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Duque?
I'm assuming, we'll find out if and what there's any role, city council will play with any of that, not trying to at all micromanage. I'm as someone who works on websites and has been part of the process, both as a client and then also as a contractor. Good luck to you. You guys, I'm very excited that we're ready to move forward with this. I do know that maybe it was I don't even know how long ago it was, but the last website when it got updated, there was a focus group or something along those lines. I look at Mike Todd because that's how I met at the time, Councilmember Todd, and I was a resident. That's how we first met, because we were part of that kind of focus group to talk about user experience and things like that. So I don't know if that's part of your project plan overall or what you looked at, but I found it helpful as a resident to understand what the priorities of the content that the city would be working on. Also, I know that there's a lot of local businesses that are doing this, not for the business wise, but maybe their expertise in terms of their, members of the chamber, and they have that experience of what kind of the content they're looking for when they go to the site. So whatever that process looks like, I guess my question is, it's more of I hope that there's those steps along the ways. And the most important thing for me, and I say it now, even though we're talking about the contract, is really seeing how we can upgrade or update any way for residents to be able to do the request or the concern comment section of the website, because it's so tedious to have to click the way it is and it's not mobile friendly. And so I assume it's part of this process. And I just want to say thank you for that. But that is my question, is if that is a priority in terms of that user experience when it comes to submitting requests or comments or issues with the parks and things like that.
It was definitely a consideration in our interviews, what the companies were capable of doing, what the opportunities and options were along those lines. And regarding the user group or the focus group, we have talked about it, and I think that we landed on that we will probably get started on it and then have a group that comes in maybe a little bit further down the line and not in that beginning stage. But as we solidify what we want, just to make sure that we've addressed all the issues. So we talked about that, and we also talked about possibly a testing group when we do come up with that sandbox version that we can, that make sure that, if it meets our needs before we go forward.
Perfect,
So
thank you.
we definitely part of the discussion.
Good, yes, because that's what I meant by focus group. It's more towards the end, not
Yeah.
while you're trying to figure out your content and what you're moving and everything. That it's more the usability of making sure that we have diverse perspectives from community members about how they would look for their content on the site and what it is. Because I think that's always helpful to determine what, a mom of 3 kids is looking for versus someone who's retired and, is looking for recreation, whatever that might be. I think it's important to get those few points out there. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Paddock?
I did have a couple of questions that were kind of deep down into the response back from the vendor from D2. And if this is a follow-up for later, or I don't know if anyone else on the council would be interested, but there was some talk in there about the search experience and bridging kind of the 2 versions of search, right? One for the agendas and minutes, one for, let's say, the rest of the portal. And Algolia, I think, was the name of either the company or the product that was going to be deployed. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. It doesn't affect my vote here, but we'd like to hear a little bit more about that in a future session. And then also that the data sets sounded like they were going to be prepared for large language models for AI utilization, and kind of how the city or how the marketing team is looking at utilizing AI through the website. That would be interesting I think for me to understand in the future.
Brain is shutting down. Okay, on the first point, Maybe I'll start with the AI one because I remember that one. Regarding AI, so we're requesting information specifically about the chat function and how something like Chat GPT or something like that could work with the you know, to use Councilmember Decay's example, a mom of three is, jumps on there and has a question and she wants to know about a rec program. Well, we can train and teach the AI, I'm going to say Chat GPT, but it could be another version. We could train that to actually comb our site and actually be able to pull information from our site and from our rec guide and to be able to provide a sensible answer that they, whether it was, where can I find this, or what's the next class coming up, that it could be able to pull that kind of information. So those were parts of our questions as far as like where we were headed for that. There are some other capabilities that we're really interested in, because in asking that question, you got some very excited people on the other end who had possibilities. So there's actually more than we were originally thinking that are possibilities, but I think we need to look a little bit more into that. But we're happy to maybe, as we get past this stage and talk to them about what's really possible, we could bring some more information back to you.
Great.
And then what was the first question? Sorry.
The bringing together of the search capabilities, search experience.
With iCompass, it's difficult so we will be able to create a more seamless version with, say, using ActiveNet, which is our rec programs, and through our website. So we're able to do that. We're not positive about iCompass and if we might be able to, on the face, make it look more similar, but that's to be determined. So it depends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Motions,
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
please.
Move to authorize a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with D2 Creative LLC and appropriate up to 100,000 of ARPA dollars funding for the website and resident communications platform redesign.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Chief.
Evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I have two items for your consideration this evening. The first being an ordinance amendment in our chapter 618 of our animal housing contract with animal services through Everett Animal Shelter. We'll just wait here for the PowerPoint to be brought up. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so the city of Mill Creek has had a relationship through an ILA with the city of Everett since 2005 for animal housing services. Recently, or just earlier this year, we renewed that ILA with them, and they had a couple of changes in their ILA. One of the changes was a change in the amount of days that an animal is housed before they start looking for adoption services. It previously was 10, and this was also changed in the city of Everett Municipal Code. And that housing limit was changed from 10 days to 6. Part of the reasons for this is there was some concerns regarding the inappropriate use of the animal shelter as a boarding facility for animals as well. And so this was one of the concerns. So during the ILA and discussions with the Everett Animal Shelter, they encouraged us to be in line with their municipal code as well, to provide efficiencies, and so that it makes the process a little bit easier. When the city of Mill Creek brings an animal to the Everett Animal Shelter, if we are not in line with their ordinance, we have to provide them with written notice that our animals will be staying for 10 days versus the 6. So every time our PSO would bring an animal to the shelter, that's when we would have to give them written notice as to this change. And in considering this change, we really were considering the quality of life for the animals, which was important to us. So this change from 10 days to 6 days does not change the quality of life for the animals at all. The animal shelter does a really great job of making sure that animals that are capable of moving on through the shelter and being adopted do so. They're given medical treatment, brought up to a healthy condition if they are in that type of condition, and then they are put in for adoption after that 6th day. And, you know, also in consideration, we were thinking that, you know, homeowner or animal owners, you know, when your dog is missing or your cat is missing for 6 days, you're probably doing your best to locate the animal that you're looking for. You're putting up signs, you're checking the website. And recently we've added this website link to our website as well. So when you go onto our website for animal control services, there is a link to the Everett Animal Shelter for their lost and found animals, so that our residents will have immediate access to this. So we felt that being more efficient and a better way for us to operate, so that we're not having to provide written notice every time an animal is brought to the animal shelter that has a Mill Creek association, that we recommend this change to moving this from a 6-day temporary or holding to 6 day, from 10 days to 6, I'm sorry. It makes the job for the PSO a little bit easier, and it allows the animal shelter to address the concerns that they have in regards to as many animals as they have there. And in review of the numbers that we actually provide to the animal shelter, between January of 2021 and December of 2023, 103 animals were brought to the shelter, which is a pretty significant number of animals. 46 of those animals were actually dropped off by civilians, not by the police department. So when somebody finds an animal out on the road and they take this animal to the animal shelter, that shelter asks, where is this animal from? And so if they say Mill Creek, then that's who they contact us, and we actually verify through the location where they say they believe they found it. We verify if it is associated with the city of Mill Creek. And then we move through that process of notifying them that we'd be extending for another 4 days if we did not change the ordinance. But actually 10 dogs or cats, 10 animals were brought to the animal shelter by the police support officer in that same time period, and 18 were surrendered by the owners. So we don't have a very large number of, I mean, there's some smaller numbers scattered throughout, obviously 103, those numbers don't equal to 103. But there's also different ways of animals showing up at the shelter. So when the animal's brought into the shelter, the very first thing they're doing is they're checking for microchips. They're taking photographs of the animal, checking their physical health, making sure they get the medical assistance that they need, trying to find that owner. If they do identify the owner, then that owner is contacted via the information on the microchip or on the license. They also notify us. So really that 6-day period is a pretty significant time frame for you to come and claim your animal. So that's why we think that it's the most effective way for us to be in line with them, so that we're not missing an opportunity to send them, or an opportunity, but a requirement to send us a written notification, and recommending that we make this change to the ordinance. So here's what the ordinance would be, or this is what it currently is. You'll see that right there in the red font, we're changing this from 10 days to 6. There's also a spot in the disposition of impounding animals for the purposes of section disposition means the humane killing of the animal and things of that nature. But this has to be in line with section A. But like I said, the animal shelter does not. This is not the only time humane euthanizing of an animal really occurs is when the animal is not suitable for adoption or is in a quality of life situation where a qualified veterinarian makes that determination. So I want to be perfectly clear on that. So they do everything they possibly can, to include reaching out to rescue facilities to make sure that these animals are trying to get the best quality of life possible. So with that, I'll take any questions, and the motion is actually on the screen.
Any questions? Councilmember Ellison?
Do we have any data regarding how many animals are actually reunited within that 6-day window as opposed to the 10-day window?
I wish I did, but they didn't provide me with that information. I asked for that information. I think some of their records are more in line of how the intake side works of it versus how many of them are going out, and that is unique to Mill Creek.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to make a motion, but I'll just start with this. Short of the city of Mill Creek building an animal shelter facility, the Everett facility is really the only game in town. So effectively, we have to play by their rules for the most part. So I'll make the motion.
Can I ask a question real quick? So just to be clear, we're changing the code to shorten it from 10 to 6 days, consistent with the ILA. But the ILA allows us to extend that 6 days to 10 days. That's not reflected in the code, but it's in the ILA.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks for that clarification, though. Authorize the city manager to approve an ordinance to amend chapter 6.18 of the Mill Creek Municipal Code regarding animal control impounding procedures.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Item 9C, domestic violence coordination.
Okay, thank you. So one of the services we provide here with the city of Mill Creek is domestic violence coordination. And since for like approximately 5 years, we've been using bridge coordinating services for this service. The individual associated with that, Ms. Tiffany Kersey Kelly and Amanda Coling, are actually joining us virtually here tonight. So I'm pleased to see them here. They provide us with an excellent service. What their service is designed to do is to provide information, education, and resources to victims of domestic violence and law enforcement agencies, and to help us with law enforcement agencies. They coordinate with victim services by doing follow-up case reports. So a lot of times we ask them to follow up with victims a day after or maybe further, and decide if there's any other additional information that officers need to respond to. And with the fact that the officers are fairly busy on a day-to-day basis, this is a tremendous help to us. They obtain victim statements, provide input. They work with these victims to make sure that they're understanding the process and how this works through the court system. They're providing them with guidance on how to obtain orders for protection. Just a large amount of processes that have to be involved with following a case through the judicial process. In 2023, we responded to 179 domestic violence cases. And during that same time period, the domestic violence coordinating services, they placed 320 phone calls with those victims. They're really a conduit between the police department and these victims, as well as just a great educational resource for the victims who have a lot of questions. And the officers aren't always available to answer those questions, but these coordinators are. What's really great about this service is that it provides, these are mandatory reporters. So any information that they receive is then relayed to the officers, and so that we can take the appropriate action as to figure out what needs to occur next. But they are also subject matter experts, and a lot of times they provide us with useful information as well as to how they feel we should proceed, as well as the prosecutor's office. So they are really a conduit up and down this process as to what's going to happen with the prosecutor's office, what's happening for the victim, and us as the in-between saying, how do we make sure that the proper information is going both directions? You know, we're informing the victim, but we're also providing the correct information to the prosecutor's office, the pertinent information to the prosecutor's office. So I'll actually ask Tiffany and Amanda if they would have any information they'd like to share with council as well. I know that this is something that is a big part of the services that we provide here at the Mill Creek Police Department. This is a service that is provided at many of our local agencies, and actually through this bridge coordinating services is a major contributor to that. So
Chief, is this a new contract or renewal of an existing
this is a
contract?
renewal of an existing
Okay,
contract, Mayor.
thank you.
No, so with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Chief?
It's a renewal and I see it's budgeted also.
Yes.
Councilmember Paddock.
I really just had more of a comment. As reading through this, I mean, it was just heartbreaking to see that 179 instances where this service was required, and certainly want to thank the representatives that are on the call now that are on the Zoom now that provide that. What I read was that it sounds like there's a significant amount of services that are provided, and then there are really a conduit, a trusted individual that'll help guide them through the criminal justice program. And I can't imagine going through that without going through what those people have gone through. Would support this 100%.
Councilmember Duque.
Ditto. So I'll pause there and I won't repeat that. I would like to see, this is fantastic. I'm not trying to take that away, sorry. It seemed kind of flippant. I didn't mean it that way, just you said it so nicely and I don't want to reiterate that. On the website, when I went to go look up the pet licensing and all that kind of information and, looking this over, I didn't, on the domestic violence advocate section, I saw all the amazing resources that you have listed there, but I didn't see actually a mention of BCS. And so I didn't know if it's because of the way it's partnered or the way it works, that it doesn't get its own kind of call out about what that relationship. So this is more of a, instead of a question, it's more of a comment of maybe with this renewal or, working with Marcom to see how we can include that, because everything I read in what you've presented about the renewal, about what, all of that was just, it is something that I feel like should be really flagged, even if no one goes to this webpage and ever sees it, but it's very clear about that element that people just don't think about until they're in that place. So that was my comment.
Well, in the agenda summary is a lot more detail as to all the services that they
Right.
provide. This is just a quick glimpse, just so that there's an understanding as to the reason why we're coming to council with this request for the renewal of this contract. They do provide a great service, and Ms. Colling is here every Friday, and she is doing a lot of phone calls and she's reviewing a lot of case reports, and they do an excellent job, and I agree with that, and that's something that we probably should look at updating.
Yeah.
As far as the data that's actually on our website.
Sure, yes, absolutely. The data and just, the stories, we were talking about the survey that we just did and the stories about the work that we do as city council members and how can we share, these opportunities or what's going on. This is something that I think is I think really, sometimes more valuable than some other conversations that we might be having to share with residents about that. Because when we think of police, I think sometimes we don't always think about this element and how you've already found this opportunity to create that partnership and that program to have this. And it seems really important that, we highlight that this is happening, and also just, being realistic about what's going on in our city. So thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
May as well make it 3 in a row. Approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Bridge Coordinating Services for domestic violence coordination services for fiscal years 24 and 25, not to exceed $95,624.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just real quick. These folks, you heard the chief's presentation, and I'm sure if they had a chance to comment, they work with numerous cities, and you mentioned the conduit to the police department, but they're also a conduit to the courts, and cases move forward. They provide referral services for victims. They provide shelter. They provide resources. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that most folks will never even have a clue about. So, I, of course, wholeheartedly support this.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add, this is such an important service. I'm really glad that we are able to offer this to members of our community. It's such a delicate time when women are going through this process, and helping to have someone there to help explain and navigate during a time when they're frightened, they're overwhelmed, and everything can be so intimidating. And so I'm really grateful that we have have this here and that we're offering this. And obviously we're supporting it, but, so I'm just very grateful, and I don't think we can really say enough about the great work that services like this provide to our community that's much needed. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda this evening. Item A is approval of checks number 66941 through 67061 and ACH wire transfers in the amount of $942,209.07. The audit committee was Councilmember Cavalieri and myself. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions. Item B is payroll and benefit ACH payments in the amount of $860,722.82. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
And city council meeting minutes of January 9th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those-
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. City manager, staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have one report, as you're all aware, the city of Mill Creek sent a team of council members and the deputy city manager, myself, had the opportunity to visit the AWC conference held in Lacey, Washington, over at St. Martin's University. It was moved from Olympia last minute due to a loss of venue over, I think it's Red Lion over in Olympia. They capped it at 250, but there was still a good turnout. A large group of newly elected officials was there. So I had the opportunity to meet a few of them. The format of it was still very energizing. We had senators, representative there covering a lot of the key issues, which was housing was a big one, covered predominantly. Other topics included the economy, general presentations about kind of where we are and where the state sits financially. One of the key presentations was from the governor in his final term as he prepares for his final term, holding his position. And another big takeaway was an opportunity to meet with our representatives Berg and Donahue over at the state capitol, and I'm sure that our council members that were there are going to report on that, so I'll hold off on that. But that's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Any other staff reports?
No other reports.
Okay. Since I skipped my report last meeting, I've got several items to report on. I attended the SCC dinner last month. I think I was the only one able to go. Don Schwab from Everett was elected president of SCC for the coming year. That was our only topic of discussion on that meeting. I had the privilege to speak at 3 honors English classes at Heatherwood last month for their career week. So I got to talk both about my day job and my night job, and got to pimp the youth advisory board and get these middle schoolers involved in the youth advisory board when they move into high school. I had a couple of mayor's meetings in the last couple of weeks, but I don't have anything significant to report about those. If you're interested in missing middle, although we don't have to implement it till after we adopt our comp plan, the Department of Commerce did issue their final guidance and their model ordinances for jurisdictions to implement missing housing. It's available on the Department of Commerce website. The mayor pro tem and I and city manager and deputy city manager had a good discussion with Councilmember Mead and Tom Teagan, who used to be the parks director. I think they consolidated into a new department, natural resources and parks. So Sharon Swan was now the parks director, and Tom is a step up from that. But we had a good conversation about McCollum Park without getting too far into the details. You know, we're talking about how we might joint plan for it. I guess my takeaway from that is, given its location and the way that area is developed with the orange line terminating right there and its proximity to I-5, I think and given the constraints with that site being an old landfill, I think the likelihood of the county pursuing any park amenities at that location are probably slim to none. I think more likely they may look at, with the farm center going in there, some kind of housing development in the future, but I think there's still opportunities for us to work with them because whatever they do there will have an impact on the city of Mill Creek. The next last item is the TOD bill, House Bill, let's see, engrossed second substitute House Bill 2160. This is the TOD bill that was introduced last year that would put some requirements on us to upzone areas around transit stops, the bus rapid transit stops. The short version is I got a call or text from Representative Berg as I was crossing Stevens Pass on Friday night, wanting to talk to me about the comment letter that we submitted last week that Mike and Stephanie and myself and Martin put together, that we submitted expressing some concerns. And she called me and wanting to have a phone call about our comment letter. And I ended up spending a half hour on the phone with her and Representative Reed, who's the prime sponsor in the bill, on Friday night. So they heard our concerns. I think some of them are addressed in the bill. I don't know what its prospects are. I think it's being pulled to the floor. No, it got passed out of the House. It is now in the Senate Local Government Committee. I have no idea what its prospects are. There's still a lot of concerns about the bill, but it sounds like they're working on some amendments that would provide us some flexibility on how we meet its requirements. And there's some flexibility already in the bill. So that's a shortish version, but it was a productive conversation. And the other takeaway is they listen to us. We have a good relationship with our representatives. So when we submit a comment letter, they call and ask for follow-up and ask for further input. And lastly, I just want to say, I thought last week's meeting was great. I think that was one of the most productive discussions on growth and housing issues that I've had on this council in 10 years. And so I just want to thank everyone who participated. I thought that was a really good, robust discussion. With that, that is all I had tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, any report?
Thank you, Mayor. Very brief report from me. The mayor pretty much covered any of the things I wanted to discuss. I just want to add to that my regarding the conversation about McCollum Park, I think other than what the mayor said, my takeaway also is that if we want something, we need to do it, because we can't count on a partnership with them to go and build something we were hoping to have at McCollum Park, because it's not going to happen. So if we're wanting it and it's our dream and our vision, we need to put it in DRCC and make it happen. So that was my takeaway on that. And then also, I am very excited because we did send the letter. We did put a lot of work into that letter on 2160 to send out with our needs on there. And so it's really nice to hear that Representative Berg reached out and had the sponsor of the bill call the mayor and have a discussion. So I'm very grateful to see that we are doing the work, we're making a letter, we're following this process, and we're being heard, and hopefully some changes will be coming from that. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Councilman Cavallari?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick shout out to all the other applicants for our youth scholarship. What a tremendous group of applicants. And I think every council member reviewed and voted, and you saw the product that came here today. Young Ella Williams was pretty darn impressive in paper and pretty darn impressive in person. And I say the future is bright in Mill Creek when you see young people just come and just knock it out of the park. Thanks.
Councilmember Steckler?
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Allison?
Yeah, so I was able to attend the Association of Washington Cities Legislative Action Days. And I guess the biggest impact I felt was talking to these really tiny cities and how limited their resources are and how lucky we are to not be in that same position with infrastructure that they can't maintain because their tax base is just so small. We did have an opportunity to go to the Hill and actually got to sit in with the Democrats while they caucused for a little bit. So that was a new experience for me. I hadn't seen that happen before. Let's see. Also had the opportunity to talk to a couple of elected leaders about the developer hesitancy to build condos, and also had a conversation with Representative Berg on that same topic at dinner. So I look forward to maybe digging into that a little bit more and trying to push for some changes to the laws, because there are definitely reasons why those developers are hesitant to go forth with condominium developments. I think I'll leave that there. Thank you.
Councilmember Duque?
I was also there. And I had a fantastic time, and what I wanted to flag is I really appreciated what, first of all, I really appreciate our city manager, our deputy city manager, and my fellow council member, Allison. I don't like to attend these events if I don't feel like I have a purpose. I, don't want to waste my time. Not in a negative way. It's just, if I'm there, I'm not making money at work, kind of a deal. And so it was very important for me that I had a plan, and it ended up, I really encourage, whether we rotate or how it works out, but that all of us have the opportunity, if you have not already, to attend this. Because yes, the presentations can be quite long, and some of them may be, not always the right fit, but it was also the opportunity to talk to other council members. I met a lot of mayors, but I also got to meet with council members, that are doing what, we do. And I got to share that we had that joint planning commission meeting to talk about our comp plan. And that was pretty, a lot of people were really into that. We got to share, city manager got to share that with our Representative Berg and Donahue about how we did that. So it was nice to come to them to show them what we're doing. So it's not just we're demanding these things or we're requesting you look at these things. It was very helpful also to have the letter that the mayor sent out, because then we were able to reference it when we went to visit them in the office, and Councilmember Allison was able to, do the repetition of our legislative agenda and the note about what we were focusing on. So that whole process was really helpful. Also incredible to just be on the floor. And then, as Councilmember Allison said, to be able to be part of that Democratic caucus, to just be invited there and to represent Mill Creek that way. So I thought it was really fantastic. And so I really encourage us, as we figure out our committee assignments over the years and what we're working on, to think through how we can rotate the legislative committee. I learned so much more physically being there about the process than no matter how many hot sheet calls I try to join in on, or explanations from Director Todd, or, from Deputy City Manager Laurel about how to sign in to make a comment, just physically being there and then hearing from people. And the same thing about, we were really focusing on this, the TOD amendments in terms of the transit. Mukilteo has their own issues because of the ferry, and we got to hear all about that. There were, so a different, we're interested in this, but to get to hear how everyone else is focused on these issues and their example, also hearing how some cities are all about wanting additional density, because they really feel it's really important to them and to their growth, and them saying we want to take it on as well so that rural places don't have to take it, was also just kind of like, oh, okay, it's not always just not in my own backyard kind of a feeling from all cities. So it was really fantastic, and I really appreciated being there. So I have a lot of takeaways for our next legislative committee about where we're going, about what we're doing, next steps, and also what this means for how we approach our own agenda coming up in the fall, and then as we go into the new year. The other item I have on my report is that I was able to attend very briefly the Parks and Recreation Board meeting that was last Wednesday. I had to do it while checking into a hotel between meetings, but it was very kind because I wanted to make sure I was there to introduce myself to the Parks and Recreation Board, especially because we had new members. And I was really impressed already. I mean, it was the first meeting of the year, but they already had our city staff, Scott Harder, had already a great presentation about the updates on where they are for parks. So I'll definitely make sure that gets shared with everyone here about what they're doing. They're already going to working on figuring out park tours already. I saw an email where they already have it split up. So it's just great how proactive our chair is for Parks and Rec Board, but the whole team, and how dedicated they are about trying to figure out, making sure that they are, I don't want to say like the frontline ambassadors before our parks. I guess it might be the best way of some kind of variation of that and sharing that with us about what they're focused on and what they're doing. And then, of course, I gave them the update from our, because that's my goal for attending any of these meetings. I make sure to give them the update about what we did in terms of the comp plan, the Joint Planning Commission meeting, but also our retreat and our priorities in terms of how we said that we would allocate ARPA funding, so that if there were any additional ideas or other projects as they come up, to think through it, to present it to us in that way, so that they know that there's additional projects, that, you know, if anything else comes up. And that is my report.
Councilmember Paddock.
Thank you. Disappointed to have missed the AWC event. It sounds like it was fantastic. I just wanted to congratulate and thank the city staff for the city's 68% positive survey response with regard to how the city's running. That was a 50% increase from the year before. And obviously the folks that are here in the room, the folks that are not here, but that y'all represent, deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that. And also city staff adjacent, Barb, for that increase. Thank you.
Okay, it brings us to audience communication. Anyone in the chamber? Seeing no interest. Anyone online want to address the council? Not going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. The council is going to be recessing to executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1G. No action will not be taken at the conclusion of the executive session. We're going to start with 30 minutes. I suspect we will need more time than that. So we don't have to come back and out and extend the regular meeting. Can we have a motion to extend the regular meeting to 9:30?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? The regular meeting is extended to 9:30. So at 8:01, we will recess to executive session until 8:31.
At 8:38, the council extended the executive session to 9:15, sorry. At 9:12, the council extended the executive session to 9:30.
That's Brian's seat. Which one do we need to do first?
I will extend the executive session. Can we have a motion to extend the regular meeting till 10 o'clock, please?
Move to extend the regular meeting till 10?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The regular meeting is extended to 10, and we're going to extend the executive session until 9:45. And we did this at 9:29.
You're just sitting there listening, waiting for us to say something.
Adrian, are you there?
I am.
I need 4 of you.
I'm here. I'm only one of. Need one more.
Okay, the council has concluded its executive session at 9:44. No action is being taken, as I indicated at the outset, and hearing no objections, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:45.
Any questions? Anyone? Each other.